Kevin, and I'm happy everybody's here, and I hope you enjoy the displays downstairs. Today I'm just going to relax and look at some plants that can grow in your yard. This one is an interesting start, I suppose, in that this is nobody's yard. This is Coyote Ridge, just west of Highway 101 in Santa Clara County. It's a gem in Santa Clara County, and a few people know about it. It's not open to the public yet, but we do lead trips there about once a year or so, around this time of year. And it's to be seen because there's not only are there stunning wildflowers, but it's also the main population of bay checker spot butterfly. That's where they live now. They used to live everywhere, but they only survive on this specialty soils. This is called serpentine soil. They survive here because weeds really can't get in too well. It's a toxic soil. The natives are all adapted to it, whereas weeds kind of aren't as much. So anyway, that's sort of a side note. Doesn't have too much to do with gardening. But my point with this picture is there are elements of this you can pull into your garden. A lovely plant like tidy ticks, for example, that's very easy to grow anywhere in the valley here. There's a native dandelion here. Actually belongs here. You could have a native dandelion in your lawn, as it were, and it would belong there, and it would be something you could rejoice over. They're really pretty. Goldfields is the other little flower there. These are not hard things to have if you are willing to work a little bit at it. Now, whether or not you'll get bay checker spot butterflies, I don't know. But probably not. But one can dream, right? So anyway, the main focus of today's talk will be plants from the South Bay. I called it Bay Area plants, but we're all here from the South Bay for the most part, and that's where I'm going to focus. From here to here, I'll pull a few plants in from other areas, and I'll tell you about those. But the point of this talk really is there's so many plants in this area that are good for gardening. It's stunning, and the reason for that is we're right in the middle. We've got elements of Southern California, and we've got elements of the North, of the Great Northwest, and they meet right here. And so we've got all sorts of choices for gardening. From the San Mateo coast, you have this lovely scene. This is right on the ocean bluffs near Half Moon Bay. The Santa Cruz Mountains have mixed evergreen forests and, of course, really nice redwood forests. They also have chaparral, so that's the Southern California element. You have the northern is the mixed evergreen forest and redwood forest. And Southern California is full of chaparral. We've got both. Oak woodland, oak foothills. This is actually a park in the city of San Jose. This is Guadalupe Oaks Park in San Jose. Really neat place if you ever have a chance to go there. Oh, yeah. It's a little island, and it's really neat just to see these things surviving right in the middle of the city. You can see the city all around you. And then we also include places like Mount Hamilton, where this lovely little flower grows. This is called Claytonia gypsiphyloides. It doesn't really have a good common name, but it's downstairs. It's gypsum-loving Claytonia, I guess. But what a beautiful sight that is to see. And it really has nice fragrance too, these tiny little flowers. And then how about blazing star? That grows on the other side of Mount Hamilton and is gorgeous. It actually grows here in the Santa Cruz Mountains as well. So these are all things you can bring into your yard without too much difficulty. Let me pause real quick. When I say bring into your yard, I'm not encouraging people to go out and collect in the wild. I mean, it's not legal unless you know somebody with private property and says, go ahead and collect it. You can't collect at parks. I just want to put that out there. But most of what I'm showing you today is available in the nursery trade. That's why I'm showing it to you. There's so many other plants that I didn't show you, and there's probably common plants that I didn't show you too. There's just so many things to choose from, and us with only an hour. So. Yeah.
What are the best of the nurseries that handle the
So here in San Jose, there's Payless Nursery on the east side that has a good native selection. Some of the so Almaden Valley Nursery has a good selection. Yamagami does. There's a native nursery in Aptos called Native Revival. Really nice. There's another one in Santa Cruz, Central Coast Wilds. So they're around. Steve, you have a suggestion?
Capital Wholesale. They're doing a
great
great job.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of natives now. And
they have a lot of natives, and they will special order anything for you.
Right. And you just wander in there and look around. It's not fancy. but it's really nice. Capitol, this is on Southwest Expressway.
Sort by Southwest, not on it.
Oh, it's not?
No, Capitol is by Capitol Expressway,
Oh, okay.
east side San Jose.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, they're central.
Oh, Central.
Central, but they won't special order and they don't have that much.
Okay.
Capital Wholesale, the whole nursery is in a PG&E right-of-way underneath these big
High tension
wires.
High power wires.
They couldn't put anything else there, so they put plants. And but they'll
Takes long, your plants kind of grow, glow a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that they attract moths because they glow at night,
Sure.
right?
No, that's good. There really haven't been a whole lot of nurseries here. There's always been Yerba Buena Nursery, which is far away. Now they're in Half Moon Bay, which is still kind of far away for a lot of us. Lovely place to go. There's a lot of other places to visit over there. Yeah.
There's the Summer Winds in Palo Alto. Has somebody who's noted a lot of natives?
I've been noticing a lot of Summer Winds have natives now, and even a few at Home Depot. So you never know. I think you're going to see more and more native sections. Of course, the best place to buy your native plants is the Native Plant Society.
Next
And there
week.
happens to be a sale next week. So that's my plug for them, for us.
CNPS next Saturday.
CNPS, and that's where it's held. This is Hidden Villa. None of us really have this in our backyards unless we're really lucky, but we can borrow some scenery from this kind of a situation.
Do you have to pay for the parking when you go
No,
to the
not for the
plant?
plant sale. No, it's free parking. Everything's free except for the plants.
It wasn't last year.
No, it's free parking. You just tell them you're there for the plant sale.
Except for park in the right spot.
Yep. So this is a nice native morning glory that is easy to grow, and in fact, it's so easy to grow. Be careful. It might be one of these things you go, oh, please establish, and then you find yourself ripping it out because it's established so well. But a lot of us, if you have room for a plant like this to climb along a fence or something, by all means, it's one to do it. This is a scene from Edgewood. Again, not something we have in our yards necessarily, but a simple little arrangement here of a common lotus and our soap plant in bloom. And this is these kind of scenes are all over the valley, all around the valley, and they used to be in the valley, and then we came. But this is can't get too much closer to the valley than that. This is black sage growing overlooking the Almaden Valley, and this is a plant that the reason that I'm saying to use natives it's no brainer because they're easy. They're just they really don't require a whole lot of suffering. They don't require pesticides. You want some of the insects to come in, but most of the bad insects will leave these guys alone. You'll get beneficial insects, but you won't get the things that hurt a lot of other plants because these belong here. They've evolved with what's flying around here, and so it's a no-brainer to me in that they're really easy. There are other benefits as well, like bringing in good wildlife, but just the fact that they grow so easily without having to suffer over them like the things from Europe do, parts of Europe. So I want to, basically the rest of the time we're going to look at various plants. And I'm going to start with trees, and I'm starting with one of the bigger trees we have. This is Valley Oak, and this is the one that should be here. This is the one that suffered the most by us moving in. It likes valleys, we like valleys, and there's not a whole lot of these left. They are tremendous plants. A lot of people think that oaks grow very slowly. This one will grow fast. You can water this oak. A lot of oaks you say, oh, you can't water it, it'll die. This one grows in water. At Lexington Reservoir, when it floods, this one will be surrounded by water, and it's still growing just fine. So that's how much water it can take. It can be underwater. So, and when you water something like that, it'll grow really fast. It is the largest oak in the world. A lot of people don't know that. It's the biggest oak in the world. It has that classic oak shape. One of the reasons I really like this plant is it's deciduous. This is a deciduous oak. Like I'm from back east where they're all deciduous. And I came here and said, what's this thing that's evergreen all year? It can't be an oak, clearly. But we do have evergreen oaks too. The deciduous oaks are really good at putting down litter that is very usable as mulch. The evergreen oaks, it's a little bit tougher to have that stuff break down, those evergreen leaves. But these leaves break down really well. Also, an advantage so a lot of us have trees already, but if you're thinking of establishing a tree, I highly encourage this one. I like deciduous trees because they let the sun in when you want it in the winter, and they block it out in the summer when you don't want it. So it's a really good green building technique is to use a deciduous tree. And there's no finer deciduous tree, in my opinion, than the valley oak. We're familiar with coast live oak as well, and I'm sure that's what it looks like at your house. They're really neat, and they're really beautiful, and they grow very willingly around here. You know, I have a problem in that they don't break down as easily, and they don't allow a whole lot of light through, so it's pretty dense shade underneath one of these. So you can go ahead and plant one. You'll get plenty. Basically, my saying is plant an oak, plant a habitat, because the things that move in when you have an oak tree, that's a whole other program. I literally have another program on that, and it would take an hour to tell you all the things that benefit from oaks. But suffice to say, if you want to bring some wildlife into your yard, have an oak tree. A tree that's not used too much in horticulture, but probably should be more, is gray pine. It's a really pretty plant. Maybe why it's not used is it has really huge cones that might hurt if they fall, because they're kind of spiky and huge. They're like this. So, and you can see them downstairs. But otherwise, a perfectly wonderful tree. Just don't put it in places where people walk, I would say. This one doesn't look like something you know, but I'm sure you do. It looks almost like a rhododendron or something, and it's really fragrant and beautiful, and it's laurel. It's our California bay tree. And look at the really pretty flowers on this thing that often are overlooked. These bloom in winter, late winter, and they're just really beautiful. Another easy tree to grow here in the valley that will grow really fast. You probably don't want to grow it next to an oak because of sudden oak death. There's a chance this species is a carrier for sudden oak death. It doesn't die from it, but it can carry it. So if you have oak trees nearby, don't plant a bay laurel. But otherwise, a very nice tree. This is another lovely deciduous tree. It's deciduous in a different way, though. It's summer deciduous. This is our California buckeye. And they are really something. I mean, some people get summer, loses his leaves in the summer. That's no good. It's kind of cool. It's different. It's very California. We don't have any rain here in summer. Shouldn't you be losing your leaves to save energy? Well, this tree figured it out, and it's what it does. It has a great blossom, very fragrant, very attractive to butterflies. And that happens right around now, May into June, and it's tremendous bloom. And I really like the fruit too. Shiny. When I first moved here, I thought, oh, that looks edible. It's not. It's toxic, actually. But apparently Native Americans did use them in times of trouble. You can leach out the toxins, just like you do with acorns. And it's a lot of meat in that one seed, that's for sure. But beautiful plants, and when they are summer deciduous, this is what's left on the tree. So you have a tree that looks kind of like it's dead, except it has these ornaments on it. So it's kind of neat. So that's California buckeye. This is another habitat plant, a really beautiful one, easy to grow, very quick growing. Once established, this is our blue elderberry, which gives in many ways. It gives nice flowers, very fragrant, gives fruit, it is delicious, and it's edible for humans. The blue elderberry is edible. Red elderberry, which I'm not showing you, is toxic, so don't eat the red. That's kind of universal, isn't it? But great plant for birds and for people, because we like the taste too. Speaking of things that you can eat, how about holly leaf cherry? Maybe not something we want to eat, but look at the beautiful flowers, very fragrant, again, very easy to grow. A little bit slow growing. You can give this one supplemental water. I always thought it was really slow growing, and I had one adjacent to my area that I water. It's not right in it, but it got a little bit of water, and it grew taller than me in 2 years. So that's not slow growing at all. That's pretty fast. And I think that can happen if you give it supplemental water. And they have lovely fruits too that are edible by people, but we don't usually bother because it's a very small amount of pulp and a large amount of seeds. We really like some of our birds. Band-tailed pigeons and robins and a lot of different things depend on this fruit. So this is a mosaic. You can see sort of some red in there. This is a plant that can go both in chaparral and woodland. And it's our state shrub, in fact. And it's toyon. That is our official state shrub. It grows almost everywhere. This is the the plant that gave Hollywood its name. This is Hollywood, as it were. This is the Santa Clara Valley, but a great plant for birds, again, and this one will self-sow after a while. You get one of these established and it starts making fruit like this, and suddenly you've got toyins coming up. How about that?
Is that
Not by us. I mean, again, that might be something that if you're a Native American and everything else failed, you might be able to make food out of that somehow. But, you know, it takes a lot of work, I'm sure. So, but who does like this is cedar waxwings. They really go for it. They love that. So they'll descend on one of these and denude it pretty quickly. But again, it's a very easy shrub/tree to grow. So we're sort of working from our way down from the big trees down to shrubs. And oh, that's the flower on it. It's in the rose family. That's a little tiny rose. So there's a shrub that's, it's tiny is not something you usually call this one. This is Fremontodendron. And if you have a large space to fill and you want something glorious to fill it with, go with this. This takes very little moisture, no supplemental water in the summer really. And they come in various sizes. The ones that are usually cultivated are about the size of a garage. So you have to have room for a garage. But there are smaller cultivars that are maybe no taller than me. There's actually some cultivars that are no taller than this. But those are a little more difficult to grow. The large ones are very simple to grow. And then I actually found it best when it's near a water source, but not get no water on it. So that's where I've seen it grow the best. Do you have a comment?
I was going to say, I've got a Fremontodendron recumbens that grows about that tall.
Aren't those cool? And you're doing good with it, huh?
Oh, it's perfect.
Those are supposed to be hard. Congratulations.
This year, it's 2 years old. This year, it's maybe 6 foot across. And it maybe had 500 flowers.
Yeah. Oh, they're beautiful. I have one too. And mine's in a container, and it's done well. But
and I got that at the plant sale.
The CNPS plant sale? The one that's coming up on May 4th?
That's the one, the CNPS plant sale on May 4th.
A lot of different forms of this, and very attractive plant. It really is. It's, in all seasons, I think it's just a lovely plant. It can take a lot of pruning, so if you want, you can plant it. If you don't want a garage, you can actually prune it so it's not a garage. The Arcto among us. Arctostophilus, the manzanitas. This is a little parking strip in Los Gatos that this grows in. This is the famous Howard McMinn. And so this is not a South Bay plant. This is from Sonoma County, near Sebastopol. In 1955, a professor from Mills College in Oakland selected seeds from one plant that he thought was a really attractive plant and grew them out and sent them to the Saratoga Horticultural Society. And that's down here in Saratoga, and they introduced it as Arctostophilus Howard McMinn. And that's who gave them the seeds. It's Professor McMinn up at Mills College. A lot of manzanitas are tough. They require some really sharp drainage, and they're kind of picky about water. This one's not that way. And that's why it's very popular. A lot of people, you'll see these in commercial landscapes, which tells you there must be no fail. Because they don't put things in commercial landscapes that are kind of iffy. They put things that work. So this one tolerates water if you want to water it. It doesn't need it water really too much. It tolerates clay soil and tolerates sandy soil. Great shrub.
Does it grow easy by seed?
It's not so easy by seed. It's more, so the Howard McMinn type, the only way you can get that is it's a cutting. It's a clone. That's the only way they can keep that one going. That one type. In general, manzanitas are not great by seed. There are ways to make it happen, but you kind of have to have a little bonfire here. And these are chaparral plants that sprout up after a fire and stay there until they get shaded out by trees or something. This is a rare plant up in Sonoma County. It's got one little population called the Vine Hill population. That's it. But it's everywhere horticulturally, so we can enjoy a rare plant.
How big does that get?
So this, it's not too large. It doesn't get much taller than me ever. So it's not huge. There are some manzanitas that are tree-like. This one usually is around 6, maybe 8 feet tops, and it will take a few years to get there. It's not super fast growing, but it's not, you you can actually see growth every year. It's not one of those
So will
things.
they be selling it May 4th?
It's possible. There'll be some manzanitas there for sure. This one's the premier as far as easiness, but a lot of us native plant people are kind of like, oh, that's too easy. I'm not going to try that. I want the hard one.
With time, they do get, I planted one in the mid-70s,
Mhm.
and it's now about 15 feet tall.
One of the Howard Mints. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So they can get
And quite wide.
pretty big then. Wow,
But
that's-
is it as sensitive to pruning as the other manzanita?
No, you can prune away on this one. I've pruned these up pretty good.
Others die back really bad.
Yeah, it depends, and you have to know how to prune a manzanita. You don't want to prune it too hard, but you can definitely prune a manzanita to show off its lovely trunk, which I don't know if I showed you that there. No, I didn't.
But they use this for hedges, don't they?
They do.
Commercially,
Yeah.
that's what I think you've seen.
Yeah, so you can really cut this one back, and in fact, these very plants were cut back hard after I took the picture.
You just have to cut it back to a note. If you leave a stalk sticking out, it'll die
That's-
way back.
That's a
Even
good pathway for fungus.
Big
Yeah.
ones will die back.
Yep. So that's that one. Oh, so there's a number of manzanitas in the area, as I'm sort of saying. This one's the rarest manzanita around. This grows in one place in the Santa Cruz Mountains, up on Ben Lomond Mountain. And maybe someday you'll see it in horticulture. Who knows? It's a really pretty little one. It's called the Ohlone manzanita. And this is just recently described. It grows in a really tough substrate. So a picture like that tells you that, I think it can take my yard, probably, if it can live here. This is a place called the Chalks. This is in Santa Cruz County, and it's a really chalky sort of substrate. And it grows with this guy here. This is another rare manzanita, but there's ones like it that you can grow in your yard. Manzanita in Spanish means little apple, so you can really see the little apples there. And great plants for hummingbirds. There'll be hummingbird battles near stands of manzanita, where, of course, there's manzanita everywhere, but he wants this one right here, and he's going to defend it. If you ever watch Anna's Hummingbirds, boy, it is quite comical to see how they defend their one shrub when there's a whole ocean of them out there. And they're just, you can kind of see how that would be a good place to nectar. You can see bees in here and all sorts of interesting native insects, including leaf miners. They make little decorations on your leaves. So yeah, manzanitas are great, and there are a few that are just really easy to cultivate. There are a few more that if you want to work for it, you can. This is a plant you don't have to work too hard for, Ceanothus. This is the common blue blossom. We have a whole bunch of different Ceanothus. This is the Lordy leaf Ceanothus, in really good color. Just tremendous. These have been used in horticulture and mixed up, and there's things that don't exist in nature that now exist for the garden that are easy to grow and have flowers like this. This is another plant where you really don't want to water it very much in the summer. It evolved here. They evolved here, and we don't get any summer rain. So
Do they start well from cuttings?
they do. Yeah, for the most part, Ceanothus are pretty good by cuttings, and that's how a lot of the hybrids that have been created are propagated. They aren't propagated by seed, because then you might get something else. You take a cutting and you root it, and they grow. And they come in all different forms, from tree size to shrub size, like this. And you see them a lot in commercial landscapes. If you drive up 280 about a month ago, they're all in the median of 280. Really pretty. California lilac, that's another common name. Tree size form, this is called gray Hartman. It grows really easily. Different colors, usually in the blues, blues and whites. And there's even some that are inches tall. They're great ground covers. They're a little more difficult, but they're doable. A plant that goes with it really well is this one right here. That's Western Redbud. You see, these are planted together in the median of 280. So next spring, notice, you see these two together, and it's really nice. It's really a nice display. Redbud doesn't grow in our South Bay area. This is when I'm pulling in from the North Bay. It grows in Napa County. It grows at its best in the Sierra foothills, where you can see acres and acres and acres and acres. And if you hit it at the right time, it's one of those stunning moments of contact with nature, where you just see this beautiful hillsides filled with these peas, these pea trees, as it were. They're in the pea family, and they have nice pods once they ripen, so it's a nice plant to have. Good fall color as well. Less spectacular flower on our coffee berry. These plants are really grown more for foliage and also for their fruit. Their flowers are not tremendous to us, but find a coffee berry in bloom and you'll find lots and lots and lots of native insects. They're just all over it, busy around it. Little tiny bees and flies that are on it. And birds, of course, love the fruit, and the fruit's attractive to people too. So, the name coffee berry comes from their superficial resemblance to coffee. This is what coffee berries look like before they're taken apart. And the theory is that miners maybe use it as coffee. It's actually an extreme laxative, and it might be that miners needed that. If they were eating a lot of meat and no fiber, and maybe they needed something like that. So,
Don't let your dog get it.
yeah, I would not let your dog get it. It's a good idea. Although, you see this in coyote droppings all the time. So maybe coyotes need to do that too. And that's actually one of the ways when this plant propagates. It goes through the digestive tract of the coyote and comes out, and then it's ready to go. So it's one of those synergisms. Salvias. Boy, there are a lot of salvias. The sages are tremendous. They're great, fragrant plants. We have a couple in our area. So this one is purple sage. It's just a little south of our area, but a stunning shrub. Really going to town this time of year. This is the kind of shrub that you pass and it buzzes because it's so full of insects. Literally, sometimes I'll hear where these plants are before I see them, because the insects tell me where they are. You'll hear this sort of droning, and it's probably a salvia that they're on. They come in lots of different flavors and lots of different sizes. That's our native one. That's the black sage. It's maybe not the prettiest one, but it's ours, and it has a pretty little flower. And again, it's very, very easy to grow. These require very little care once established. You can cut them back occasionally if they get leggy, but really, they're no-brainers. When I'm trying to establish something for a client, in short order, salvias go in because they make a show pretty quickly. And other things can come in later that takes a little longer, but these things just, they'll make a stunning show for you within a year. This is white sage. This doesn't grow around here, but it's an honorable mention because it's the sacred sage of the Native Americans. They used it for cleansing a room, and the New Age folks use it for cleansing a room now. But it's really fragrant, really beautiful, and very easy to grow. Sonoma sage. Again, I'm borrowing from another area, not the South Bay. Creeping sage is another name, and this is a ground cover that grows pretty reliably. And there's different cultivars and hybrids that involve this one that are quite attractive. They don't get much higher about like this. Monkey flowers, they're just starting right now in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we have sticky monkey flowers are the main one we see, and that's the main one used in horticulture. Again, a very non-demanding plant. You can see stripes like this in the chaparral, and that's monkey flower.
Do they start well from cuttings?
They do. They really do. And there's a lot of different hybrids. Because this is actually one that's from Southern California, but you mix it with our Northern California ones and you get all sorts of neat colors. They're the same species, but they just have different color forms. So you've got solid yellow ones, you've got solid red ones, everything in between. There's all sorts of colors to choose from, and they're really pretty easy to grow. They do have a bit of a summer dormancy. If you continue to water them, they won't have a summer dormancy, but they'll die kind of young. They'll die in a few years. What they really want is to be dry in the summer, and they kind of start to dry up and kind of not look that great. That's why they're good to fit into something else. But when they're looking great, they're looking really great. This is a hybrid called Changeling that I love. It's just awesome and very easy to grow. I've taken cuttings of this, talking about something that grows from cuttings, and I've stuck the cutting in the ground, and it grew. That's not recommended, but it worked for this one. And I just wanted it over here, so I took a cutting and stuck it in the ground during the wet season, and I had another plant. So that's pretty willing to grow. These are kind of overlooked sometimes, the gooseberries, or ribes also. This is hillside gooseberry. This is growing in that Guadalupe Oaks Park in the middle of San Jose. Cute little flower that appears in February or so, January or February. So it happens at a time when nothing else is really happening too much. So that's not a bad looking one. How about that one? That's Ribes sanguineum, glutinosum. That's pink flowering currant. And it's a real star of the garden. Love this plant. I love the fragrance of the leaves. Right after a rain, you smell this. It's really hard to describe. Sort of a resinous, really nice smell, a perfume in the air, and really nice. And again, these are very easy to grow. This is a shade plant, by and large.
Is it human edible, or I've heard the golden?
It is human. There's a seed. I tried it. It's not good. It's edible. It's full of seeds and kind of mealy.
So if you have an earthquake and no trucks.
If you really needed to eat food, it's there. The birds like them a lot. And I tried them, and I've heard stories that you can make them palatable. I'm not willing to do it. But I've heard stories. And I did try them, and yeah, they're edible. I didn't get sick. Fuchsia flowering gooseberry, just an amazing plant. This barely makes it to our area, but it does. It's a Southern California plant. It doesn't require a whole lot of care.
It's down in Coyote Lake.
Right. It barely makes it into our area near Anderson Reservoir and Alum Rock Park, I think. It's there. It makes it up that far, I believe. I'm pretty sure I saw it there. And it makes it into the Santa Cruz Mountains just barely. But in your garden, it'll do fine. This is a background plant, though, because it's got thorns. So you want to you don't want to have it next to the sidewalk. But it is an amazing show. And you can imagine that probably it's a hummingbird plant. When you've got a long red tube, hummingbirds go, oh, I want that. And sure enough.
Does Ribes start in Coyote?
It does.
Mhm.
Yeah, quite well. Ribes of all kinds do.
So was that a fairly large shrub, or is this something?
They can get pretty big. They can get taller than me. For the most part, they're fairly slow growing, and I've seen them down in the Southern California chaparral in Santa Monica Mountains, where they were probably about 10 feet tall. I don't think that happens in our area too much. I have not seen them get that big in our area.
They get pretty broad.
Yeah, they more spread out in our area. I've never seen them be much taller than me. You'll get branches here and there. Amenable to pruning, but again, that's something you want to have. It's a great background plant so you don't have to brush up against it too much. And it just puts on a great show from February, March, maybe into April a little bit. This is an ocean spray, and this is just starting to come out right now. This is a member of the rose family that puts on a heck of a show for dry shade. Dry-ish. You're going to have to get a little bit of water. But it's the bounty of the flowers is really worth it. It's deciduous, so come fall, it'll turn colors and then sort of disappear in your garden. But around now, it doesn't disappear. It's quite loud, and it's very pretty. And another one that likes that insects really go for. Another member of the rose family that's kind of overlooked a lot is ninebark, Pacific ninebark. It's in our area. It's never terribly common, and it probably should be used more in gardens. It's a great shade shrub. Really nice. And it's all sorts of interesting insects on it as well, beetles. And then there's the rose, which is in the rose family, our wood rose. And it's not, like your garden rose, but I think it has a really understated beauty that's not to be missed. It has a nice little fragrance. Another shade plant, and it has actually some fall color. We're always struggling for fall color around here. You don't see it other than some of the cultivated trees that we have. We don't have a lot of fall color. So it's nice to have a splash of yellow and red. The common snowberry, you don't usually see it. So this makes it look like it's a really showy plant. I'm sorry for that, because it's not. But if you see it up close, it's really got a pretty flower. Mostly it's known for its fruit, which is left on the vine, it's not really a vine, on the shrub for winter. So you'll see these in winter, and they kind of remind you that Oh, snowberries. If we had snow, we have it now, right? But it's a pretty little plant, and edible by, not people, by lots of birds. I think a lot of people are familiar with columbines, and they're very easy to grow in shade, part shade. And they're attractive to a lot of things, including this here swallowtail.
Are they picky about which columbine?
Not really. No, I mean, there's, we have basically 2 indigenous ones. I would think they would probably prefer those, but a lot of insects, they just don't care. They whether it's invasive or native or, from Europe, they don't usually care. So the cultivated columbine probably would draw them too. I've never seen them on them, though. I've only seen them on this, so I don't know for sure.
So then would you say it's mainly soil reasons you would go for the natives?
But I would go for the natives for their ease of cultivation. They evolved here. You're not going to have to suffer for them. A lot of columbines, you have to do a little dance and make a little bonfire and cross your fingers that they don't get eaten up and all that. I think this one tends to it's co-evolved with a lot of the insects and the birds, and the pathogens, so it does a little better, in my opinion. Takes a little bit of water, but not a whole lot. We were talking about sages earlier, and I left this one out because it's kind of an aberration as far as our sages go. This one is hummingbird sage, and it grows in part shade, and it's kind of a smaller plant. And this is the plant I say if you have an area that's really tough and it's maybe dry shade, use this plant. It's just tremendous. I bought one, and I now have probably about 150 because it grows by underground rhizomes, and they shoot up over here. It's got a really nice fragrance to it. And of course, it's a nice plant for hummingbirds. It's a nice plant for people because it's really pretty. And it gets out of control at times, and you have to pull it, but it smells so good. You're like, oh, this is the best weed in the world to pull. So I recommend hummingbird sage a lot. I've used it all over, and it succeeds. I put it in October, water it once, and if the rains come, I'm done watering it, and it's established. Most plants take about 2 years to establish. That one, not so much. How about houndstone? I've seen this in cultivation now a little bit. It should be in more. It's really a tremendous little spring forward. It has these beautiful clear blue flowers. We have a lot of different native irises, and I know the plant sale will have a bunch of those. They kind of tend to hybridize, so it's kind of hard to tell which species is which, but do you care? They're pretty, right? And these, you can see these out in nature real easily this time of year. Shooting stars, I don't know how many are familiar with this one. This is in the primrose, and these are also not too difficult to cultivate, except you have to be very patient if you're doing it from seed. We happen to have a chapter member, Sally Casey, who's very patient and has done them from seed, and she reports that it takes 7 to 10 years to get a flower. That's patience. So you can buy them from her with flowers on them already. She's done all the work. But if you see a grassland full of these, it's pretty stunning. In February or March, I've seen places in Southern California that are just covered with these. Everybody loves a lupin, right? Lupin is varicolor from the coast. One of the prettier ones, I think. This is a perennial. Lupins come in so many different shapes and sizes and colors, it's not even funny. Most of them that we grow are annuals, but there's a few good perennials. That's an annual one called sky lupin. So annuals, you seed them out, they grow a year, they produce seed, and that's it. You hope that the seed is set for next year, and often it does. This is our bush lupin. This is the one that's used most often in horticulture as far as perennials go. Probably your yard won't look like that, but you can bring an element from a scene like this into your yard pretty easily. Actually, you can bring all those elements in, except for maybe the mountains in the background. But you can have all those little yellow gold fields. And the contrast between the two is really nice. Checker bloom. So this is a short little plant, about this high. Really important to plant for a lot of different butterflies. A lot of caterpillars use the mallow family. This is the Malvaceae, the mallow family. And this is one of the important plants for a lot of different caterpillars. Again, very easy to grow. It will self-seed. It's kind of a grassland plant, so it wants to be out in the sun. It can take a fair amount of heat. This is from the coast. This is sea pink, and it actually does pretty well in your yard. Splash of shade, and you don't want the deepest shade. You don't want full-on sun because it'll burn a cute little plant. I treat these as short-lived perennials. They don't live too many years in cultivation, it seems to me. But while they do, they put on a good show. Speaking of a good show, California fuchsia is a plant that really could have been our state flower. You know, we all know that poppies are our state flower. This one's in every county, and it's extremely important for migrating hummingbirds. This is a plant that blooms from midsummer through autumn. You gotta admire a plant that does that in our area. It doesn't rain at all in that period usually. And this plant puts on a display like this. It thrives on neglect. This is a plant that if you ignore it, it's going to do best probably. Comes in oranges, whites, and the typical red. And like I said, you're helping hummingbirds survive a tough time. Because what do they have to eat in July, August, September, and October? Not a whole lot. But this is one of them for sure. We have a number of choice ferns in California. California maidenhair is just glorious little. This one dies down after the rainy season's done, and then it sprouts up with the first rains of the winter, and just beautiful. It definitely wants shade. Most of our ferns do. Coffee fern. Actually, this is coffee fern. There's two ferns here, and goldback fern. Coffee fern, I noticed there's one in a pot downstairs, so therefore it is cultivated by definition. But you don't see these available too often. If you see them, they're worth having because they're really, really special. This is our California polypody. And this is another fern that comes out when the first rains come out and then takes a rest for the summer. I like wood fern a lot too. This is our coastal wood fern. And I noticed there's one of those in a pot downstairs too. So these are tricky to grow in cultivation, but I think nursery folks are figuring this one out because I'm seeing it more and more. And this is sort of our classic fern around here, our western sword fern. And just, you know, if you have shade, this plant will grow there with a little bit of moisture. And it's got a nice dramatic form. Now we're into annuals. Annuals, like I said before, are plants that grow for 1 year, put out seed and die. And you hope that the seeds resow. This one resowed really well for me. This is Mattia elegans, elegant Mattia, or common Mattia sometimes. And the flowers, you wake up to this, the flowers are wide open in the morning, and as the heat pours on, they're wide open like this in the morning, and the heat pours on, they start to close, and then in the middle of the sunny, they're closed up in the middle of the day, like there's not even a flower there. The next day they're open. Chinese houses put on quite a display. This is a great wildflower for shade. Most wildflowers require some sun. This one doesn't really care about sun too much. Dash of sun here and there. The Nemophilus, the baby blue eyes, come in a bunch of different flavors. This is our local variety here. These pictures were taken from near Castle Rock. All sorts, and it's like they're like snowflakes. That's why I was just taking pictures and pictures because everyone's different. Everyone's pretty. Wing poppy, there's one of these downstairs. These are really neat. Really not too hard to grow in the dry Santa Clara Valley. I have a hard time growing them where I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They like dry and neglect. So if you can do that, you're going to have this plant. Clarkias. Clarkias. There are so many good Clarkias that make so much great color. This is one of my favorites right here at Elevate Clarkia. Just really easy to grow here. And it'll reseed and grow. I mean, I've not really heard of anybody having problems with this plant. Once it gets going, you're going to have a lot of it. over time, year after year, the populations grow. Red ribbons, Clarkia, another beauty. Well, maybe a little trickier to grow than the elegant one, but not too much in the Santa Clara Valley. You could accent plants out for corners and stuff. This one here is, you see this one commonly sold. This is Amina. This is more from the north of the Golden Gate, but a really pretty one. And then when you have a bunch of different Clarkias growing together, like I do, you get some weird, they don't know what they are. This is like hybrid mutant. So I don't know what we call that one. And then there's our blazing star, the chapter's emblem, Santa Clara Valley's chapter emblem. This is a really large flower. Again, this is one I have a hard time growing at my place because it's too wet. If you grow it here in the Santa Clara Valley, I've had people, Arvin has them. I don't know if you have this plant. Arvin has it, and it comes back every year. He lives on the east side of San Jose. He does nothing for it. He just comes back and gives him this every year. So that's pretty neat.
Shade or sun?
It's a sun one. This is one that really likes a lot of sun.
Yeah, it'll take a southern exposure.
Yeah, it grows in some scary places in the Hamilton range that you wouldn't think anything would grow. You would have no idea that something that pretty could grow out of basically a pile of rocks in the sun. But yeah, and I have to mention California poppy. When you were saying that you have pictures of fields of poppies, this is actually in our area. It's at Style Ranch, which is Santa Teresa County Park. And they put on some pretty good displays here. The poppies there can get pretty thick. And growing alongside the trail, you have a chance to appreciate them. And growing with this one right here, chia. This is the chia plant. These seeds are very nutritious. They are actually a species of chia that's not from around here is sold in health food stores as a really healthy, high protein, high fat, good fat snack. And I think Native Americans absolutely dependent on this plant. This one likes full sun and it grows, as you can see, really well with poppies.
Can you grow the ones from the health food store?
Probably. I think these would probably be a lot easier though. The ones from Mexico, you're able to grow them?
Somebody else
Yeah.
brought them to the plant exchange, so I
Okay.
know you can grow them now, so they're not the native one.
Yeah, I think you can grow the other ones, but this is my favorite.
How can you tell the difference which are the native ones?
I think you have to know where you get the seed from. I think the seeds do look different. The seeds in this one are really black. The seeds on the one that's cultivated are a little more tan colored.
Does the plant have the same form?
The plant has a similar form. It's not quite the same. It looks a lot different actually. It has that whorl look to it, but it's a lot coarser. And I'll leave you with this shot. This is from Lexington Reservoir. This is a chick lupin. And this is another plant that is incredibly easy to grow. Lupins are in the pea family, so they fix nitrogen. So there's your fertilizer right there. You don't have to bother with it. They take nitrogen from the atmosphere and put it in the roots to help other plants. So, lupins are amazing. And having an ocean like this in your backyard for a couple weeks, and then having other things come up. Yeah, Steve has one that's similar to this. It's very similar to this one. His is yellow. Beautiful. Just gorgeous. And
Yeah, I have a
self-seeds.
big display.
It's next year you'll have more.
And, in my case, the reason I put them in is that I'd taken out maybe a 10-foot wide strip of juniper. There was nothing there. And so I figured, well, until the perennials, I'd planted some perennials, but they were this big. And there was 80 foot of open space. And I thought, well, what would be better than to just scatter some seed? And so I scattered some seed, and there must have been 300 or 400 or 500 lupins coming.
That wasn't hard, huh?
No, it wasn't a lot of work.
Yeah, the one thing tricky about lupins is you have to watch slugs and snails. So I don't know if you've got your slugs and snails in order or what.
If there was...
I guess you had so many that they
I had
could
so
go
many,
home.
so much to choose from.
Right. You swamped them. That's great. Yeah, they're really easy to grow. And what Steve was hinting at there is sort of garden succession. You have an area there, that you want to fill right now, why not use something like that? And then your perennials will grow up slowly,
And it fixed some nitrogen.
yeah, and they're making your soil better for other things without any fertilizer at all. So that's pretty cool.
And it attracted huge numbers of bumblebees.
Yep.
You know?
Busy at it. Yep. That's another buzzing plant at the right time, huh?
Yeah.
So here's a couple of resources for you. Of course, the Native Plant Society, and we have a group called Gardening with Natives. If you're not aware, that's very active. Las Palitas Nursery has a really good website called mynativeplants.com. You might want to check that out. It has a lot of information about plants from all over the state. And then I really recommend these books. This is a good book. These aren't necessarily Bay Area related. This one's from all of California. California Native Plants for the Garden. I'm still dreaming of Bay Area Native Plants for the Garden, similar to this. Might happen someday. These two are written by Judith Larner Lowry, who's up in Marin County. So she's local. She's actually from this area, so she has a lot of perspective, and she lives up there now. And she also runs Larner Seeds. So a lot of the plants I've talked about today, especially the annuals, she has available in seed. And then this is a new book written by one of our chapter members, California Native Gardening. So those are some good resources, and there's lots of other ones too out there. You just do some searching around. Happy to take any questions anybody has.
Why aren't some of the things that you mentioned that they, don't want you taking seeds and things, why aren't people propagating them more so that they can be bought?
I think it's a demand thing. I think, if there's a demand, I've been doing this for about 15 years now, and I've really seen a growth. And I think there's still a lot of room to fill. There's still
As there's more demand.
as there's more demand for things. A lot of what I was showing you today is available now, but maybe not in the numbers we'd like it to be. And I think, as time progresses, we're going to see more and more places offering. You have to kind of be careful of your success sometimes. California poppies are very popular. A lot of them are farmed in Arizona. So sometimes you'll bring a California poppy that's been farmed in Arizona that it looks spectacular because it's been sort of manipulated and they've been, changing the seed line a little bit here and there, trying to select for the largest flowers. And you'll see those big giant ones next to our little ones. And our little ones are going to get swamped out in a way. There's going to be a genetic exchange. So I guess the lesson there is if you're close to wildlands, you have to sort of think a little more carefully about what you're going to plant. If you're in the middle of San Jose or in the suburbs here, there's not too much worry about bringing new genetics in. But there are places that are mass producing native plants that are maybe not local at all and may change the local populations. So it's another one of those complications. That's not what today's talk was about, though. Today's talk was about how fun it is to garden with native plants and how many there are to choose from, and I just barely scratched the surface. There are hundreds of species in our area alone that are capable of growing in your garden very easily.
I have a question on blue-eyed grass.
Sure.
Does that need a lot of sun?
It doesn't need a lot of sun. I'd say it needs part sun. I have some growing in a meadow that gets maybe 2-3 hours of sun.
Okay, and it's not fussy on water either.
No, it'll do better with more water. What mine do, these are indigenous. I didn't plant these. These are out in the meadow, and they'll just go away when there's not enough water. And they'll be back next year. But if you want to keep them around a little longer, give them a little